Hello Hero Factory, and welcome back to the start of our brand new series, Slime. That is right. Over the next 6 weeks, we are going to be looking at two people in the Bible who found themselves in some sticky, slimy situations. Now, let's be honest. We at some point in our lives are going to find ourselves in a slimy, sticky situation. Now, I'm not talking about being slimed like this. No, I am not talking about being slimed. I'm talking about situations where things aren't good, or bad situations, or situations where we're going to find ourselves in a bit of a place where we're like, how did I get myself into this? And that is exactly what happens to the two people who we are going to talk about over the next couple of weeks. And those names and the names of the people that we're going to be looking at are called Jacob and Esau. That's funny names, isn't it? Imagine we call it Esau. Seesaw without the C. Esau. Yeah, that's right. Esau. Jacob and Esau. And you can read all about them in the book of Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible. So remember, the Bible is two parts, Old Testament, New Testament, and the Old Testament, the first book, is Genesis. And you can read all about Jacob and Esau in that book. But what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks is we're going to be looking more at their life and looking at some of the slimy, sticky situations that they found themselves in. Anyway, we're going to watch a little video which just introduces and tells us a little bit more about Jacob and Esau. Let's watch this.
God's story, Jacob and Esau. So part of God's story is about twin brothers, and it begins like this. Once, there were twins named Jacob and Esau, and they didn't get along. They actually started fighting before they were born. Then during birth, Esau came out first, but Jacob was holding on to his heel. That's not normal, and they even look different. The Bible says Esau's body was covered in so much red hair, it was almost like he had clothes on. Jacob's skin was smooth. Well, they got even more different as they grew up. Esau hunted animals and spent time outside. Their dad, Isaac, was a big meat eater, so Esau was his favorite. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet guy who liked to stay indoors. Their mom, Rebecca, liked Jacob the best. The Bible doesn't talk much about Jacob and Esau as kids, but we do know Esau was lucky to be the oldest because he had what's called a birthright. That meant Esau would be in charge of their family, including all their money, land, and stuff. Jacob would probably have to work for his brother Esau, and their dad Isaac would give Esau a blessing, which means Isaac would ask God to take care of his oldest son Esau in an extra special way. Well, you probably think Esau was pretty excited about this, but he wasn't. In fact, one day he gave it up. He'd just returned from a hunting trip. Since he was out killing animals all day, he didn't have time to eat. He came home starving. Jacob was making stew, so Esau said, "Quick, give me some of that stew. I'm very hungry." Now, Jacob was a little sneaky, so he didn't just share the stew with his hungry brother, which would have been nice. Instead, he said, "First, sell me your birthright." And guess what? Esau said yes. It's a little like paying $1 million for a bowl of mushy soup. We don't know why Esau did that, but the Bible says he didn't care about the birthright.
So you've got two brothers, and I think it's pretty obvious how their relationship is going to go by the fact that apparently they were fighting when they were inside their mum's tummy. They were born, and he was holding on to him when he was born, and Esau came first, and he loved animals, and his dad loved him because he loved animals, and Jacob worked hard. And then we see this really interesting part of the story where it talks about the birthright. Now, birthright is a bit of a funny thing to understand, but basically in the Bible times, if you were the firstborn child, then you would have this birthright. And what this birthright meant is that you would be eventually in charge of all the money and the land and the animals that your family had. It meant that Jacob would have probably had to work for Esau, and it also meant that his dad would kind of pray over Esau, who had the birthright, and give him this extra blessing It was a huge honor to have the birthright, and it came with this huge responsibility. But here's the thing, Esau didn't really care, did he? He didn't really see it as a big deal. He just decided that one day he was hungry, and because he was so hungry, he gave away his birthright to his brother, which isn't good at all. And actually, over the next couple of weeks, as we learn more about Jacob and Esau, we'll realize how that actually causes so many issues. But here's the thing, Esau was pretty selfish. He kind of just thought about himself and what he wanted. You know, at that time, he was hungry, so he wanted food. So actually, he didn't really care about the birthright. But it was an honor that was given to him because he was the first son. He had the birthright, but he was pretty selfish. And you know what? This got me thinking that in life, I think sometimes we can all be a little bit guilty of being selfish. Now, being selfish means this, or selfish means this. It's lacking consideration for other people and concerned with your own personal profit or pleasure. And Esau was all about that. He didn't care about his actions affecting other people. He didn't care about what it might mean if he gave his birthright away. He just wanted to do things for what he wanted. And at that point, he was hungry. And like I said, I think at some point in our lives, we can all be a little bit guilty of thinking about ourselves and being selfish. I know that I have. I remember when we were younger and my mum taking me, my brother and sister out. She, you know, she was taking us to the cinema, and the cinema cost a lot of money, and we were going to have sweets and we were going to have a great time, and we were all so excited. I can't remember the film, but we were so excited to go to the cinema. But we had jobs that we had to do before we went. We had to tidy our bedrooms. We had to make sure that we had kind of, you know, washed up the dishes and cleaned the kitchen, not clean the kitchen, but do the dishes. And we also had to make sure our bedroom was tidy. Now, my mum had said that we had to do these things before we could go to the cinema. And if we hadn't have done them, then we were not going to the cinema. And I thought I knew best. And here's the thing, I didn't want to tidy my bedroom, so I didn't. And actually, as we all know, when we don't do things that our mum and dad tell us to do, or people in leadership or authority tell us to do, it can sometimes lead to consequences. And because I didn't do the jobs that I was asked to do, I wasn't allowed to go to the cinema. But here's the thing, my mum was on her own with me, my brother and sister. So because I couldn't go to the cinema, it meant my brother and sister couldn't go to the cinema. You see, what happened there was I was being pretty selfish. I was thinking about myself, thinking about the fact that I didn't want to tidy my bedroom. I didn't want to do these jobs. I just wanted to go to the cinema. And actually, it had huge consequences for everyone else. Where if I'd just done the jobs that I'd been asked to do, then I wouldn't have been selfish and we could have all gone to the cinema. You know, the Bible talks a lot about this. And in the Bible, in a book called Corinthians, it says this, 1 Corinthians 10, verse 24, no one should seek their own good, but the good of others. And what that Bible verse is basically telling us is that we shouldn't be seeking or looking for all the things that we need and we want and all the things that make our life better and being selfish about it. No, we shouldn't be like that. We need to be thinking about our actions and how they affect other people, and also things that are going to make other people's lives better. You know what? We're all guilty of being selfish, and we all make mistakes. And we all mess up. But isn't it so good to know that God will always forgive us? And we can always have a fresh and new beginning. Esau was pretty selfish, and he sold his birthright to his brother for a bowl of stew, which is, I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? That's just so ridiculous. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to learn more about Jacob and Esau. But we're going to head back now, and your leaders are going to talk to you a little bit more about this. I'll see you next week here at Factory for the second part of our series.